So firstly, to introduce myself, I'm Pete Fowler. I am the Managing Director of Lumi here in the UK. And to give a bit of context as to who Lumi are and obviously how we support listed companies and associations. And that's exactly what we do. We support them with registration and voting technology at their annual general meetings, at their elections, at their congresses and federation meetings. And we support that through, as I say, electronic voting for that real-time live response. Now, what we are doing, as well as our proprietary technology, which in fact you're using here today with the voting element in the main plenary, and we will be using it in the session, we also provide mobile technology. So that is for hybrid AGMs and also virtual AGMs, which is very topical. And I've got a number of case studies that I'll go through today, which hopefully will be very beneficial for you to get a picture as to the impact of that technology to those meetings and the success of it. We are across 11 countries as an organisation, and we support these types of organisations. So we're very proud to support these companies. As you can see, that is a mixture of both listed and non-listed, obviously, associations, as I mentioned. Some ones to highlight, of course, in the UK here is the National Education Union, the NEU. The Institute of Translation and Interpreting, I'll come on to that a little bit to describe a case study around that and what we've done there and the success there. And also Amnesty International, that's another one here in the UK with about 100,000 members, and where we've applied our technology to their meeting, but also being part of their digital journey, in fact, over many years to get to where they are today. So actually I wanted to make it quite interactive, so it would be valuable to have your information. These were questions that were asked actually at the MemberWise conference in start of May. And it's quite interesting sometimes to get the slightly different opinions from two different congresses or two different meetings that are very similar in their nature, but obviously I appreciate people are coming from a slightly different angle. So it would be good to get your feedback. Obviously, which of the following do you feel is most important? Is it acquiring new members, retaining existing members, member engagement, or members feeling that they get value from their membership? So obviously you've got 10 seconds now, so please do feel free to vote on your keypad, and we'll see what kind of response we get there. So 75%, so this is interesting. So obviously if we run that against MemberWise, at the start of May, as I said, it's pretty much the same, although I think you agree wholeheartedly, probably more so, that actually members feeling like they're getting value is key. So another one is your organisation participating in a digital transformation? I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, given the nature of this conference, but it will obviously be reassuring to see that. Okay, so 60-40, so it's interesting, and comparing that again, it's pretty much similar results as to what we saw in May. Do you believe younger members expect more from their membership? So focusing on younger members, which some of our customers certainly do, around the younger generation. Okay, again, 83%. Again, in line with where we were back in May as well. It'd be interesting to get your opinions on how you believe that you can attract younger members to your association. Would you like to increase the amount that members get involved in your annual meeting by either attending in person or online? And this is the annual meeting we're really focusing on. Okay, that's great to see, 80%. And again, comparing that slightly higher than where we were, but again, on trend of where everyone's thinking. And lastly, how about getting them involved in elections, which obviously sometimes isn't timed around the annual meeting, sometimes is other times of the year. But how do you feel about that? Would you like more of your members to be involved in those elections? Okay, interesting. And again, comparing, not too far off where we were. So what do your members really want? So actually this hopefully will be of interest to you, because what we've done is we've conducted a piece of research with YouGov, where we conducted, it's a worldwide piece actually, not only focusing on the UK, but I will be focusing on the UK numbers today because of course that's of interest. But it is also of interest to compare against the rest of the world and what's happening out there. As it says here, we surveyed in the UK over 2,000 members to get their opinions, mainly focusing around the annual meeting, as you'll see, but it did provide some very interesting statistics. So the first one being, when was the last time that you actually attended an annual general meeting? unbelievably, 62% of people have never ever attended an annual meeting in the UK. And if you obviously pair that up with don't know or can't recall, and maybe the longer than 5 years piece, you're talking 75% of members just don't attend the annual meeting. Now, if we drill into that a little bit more, what are the reasons why? And this is a multiple choice element, but I think you can see there from that top bar, you'll see that the distance is something here in the UK that puts a lot of your members off. The ability to get to that meeting at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday, wherever that may be, is challenging for your members. And that was kind of interesting as well when you think about proportionally where we are in the UK. That is by far bigger than any other country, even in the US and Australia, where logistics are, of course, challenging for members to get to meetings. So an interesting number. Singapore was the closest to the UK as far as that challenge. But also you can see, in addition, there are, if you pair, I guess I trust my association to do the right thing. I think that's a positive, for sure, but maybe when you pair that up against, I don't think my attendance would change anything, then that kind of cancels each other out, I think, when you really think about that. So when was the last time you participated in any types of elections or membership? Again, it's pretty overwhelmingly never. It's obviously 31% there, or can't recall, including 10%. Again, that's close to Singapore. Singapore was closest with 21%. Of the following, what could your membership or association that you've been with the longest do to encourage you to do any kind of voting elections? And this is kind of the premise of what obviously the discussion is, and that is give them the ability to vote online. We heard from RSC this morning about their journey as far as elections and online participation, and that certainly helps them. They've seen an increase in participation. Where that was just elections, that wasn't the annual meeting as well. And I think what this is saying is that actually your members would like to participate online. They would love the opportunity wherever they may be within the country or around the world. If your association is global, then they would certainly love that ability. So I guess the good news actually, and what wasn't presented there, so some positive news, is that the UK most certainly have the most loyal members out of the research. 69% of respondents having belonged to their association more than 3 years. So longevity of being a member is obviously something that's pretty good here in the UK. The UK is the happiest nation alongside Australia with their membership. So 83% of members believe that it provided fairly good value for money, which is a great statistic. And then 91% said that they would actually renew their membership here in the UK. The not so good, I think I've touched on quite a few points there, but I think the very fact that your members don't want to participate in an annual meeting is a sign, one of the signs, that actually they don't feel like that they're engaged or have the ability to be engaged even more than they would or currently are. The UK is much higher than any other region as far as voting at annual general meetings, which is fascinating to hear. And again, that distance to travel is something that is their concern, but given that we're probably one of the smallest countries around the world where we studied and did this study, it's intriguing to know that is a reason here in the UK. So what I wanted to go on to is, well, how can we make that annual meeting more inclusive? How can we provide better engagement? And how can we get more of a representative view from your members at that annual meeting, and how can they feel wanted and for their vote to be counted? And we do that, technology is obviously the means. As I said, the statistic shows that they want the ability to join online if they can. This is interesting. This is obviously scouring some of the social media and the effects of, obviously, at an annual meeting, what the members are truly saying. And of course, yes, we're highlighting some of our technology there, but I think the positive notes are around that your members feel that their vote is being counted. It's a great governance piece to be obviously allowing your members to be casting votes live in the meeting and to be seeing results live as well. So the meeting can progress and the general feeling of the meeting can progress as well in a positive way, given the results that are on screen. I think what's kind of interesting actually on that top left point there is a tweet saying that obviously I didn't receive my ballot papers and the meeting's happening now and I haven't been able to cast my vote. what do I do? And there was no facility to be able to cast a vote there. There's no online portal. There's no option to cast a vote as a member. So if you miss that deadline for whatever reason, then obviously members don't feel valued and can't express their vote. So I wanted to take you through some case studies. Hopefully this is relevant and interesting. I think what I'm trying to take you through is 3 different approaches actually to annual meetings and how they are facilitated and conducted. This is highlighting sporting federations actually, which is a big area for us and a growing piece, but also an exciting piece because they're high profile meetings. So these are where keypads, electronic voting is happening only in the meeting because they require their members to come to the meeting. They don't allow for remote participation because their legislation doesn't allow for it or their concerns are around other factors when it comes to something like this. But this is where security is vital. A proprietary device or keypad electronic voting device can certainly help. And that helps through the speed, the accuracy, the reliability. When motions are put to the floor, results and votes are conducted within seconds, rather than paper being filled out and perhaps majorities not being reached, and therefore repeating the process yet again delays the meeting and extends the meeting where debate could be had actually instead of that process. They're complex, they can be complex, they can require different majority rules. The technology lends itself to supporting through that process, which is very challenging in a manual count, trying to obviously not only do that manual count accurately, but then trying to work out majorities and what does that mean. Well, this is all instant in the moment, and these federations have certainly been appreciative of that. And there are new things that certainly occur, new legislations, new challenges to associations regarding majorities, or in this instance there was a new gender representation piece of legislation that came into sporting federations, that councils must be made up of a percentage of each gender, and that's where the technology could again lean upon and support that process through voting and ensure that we are receiving valid ballots and we're not rejecting ballots and wasting votes where we don't want to. Amnesty International, so this is very much focusing on the UK section of Amnesty. They, as I said earlier, they have 100,000 members. So it's quite a large membership. Their remit, and we've been working with them probably for the past 5 years, was to introduce technology, to go through a journey together of doing this in slow steps, not going straight to something that is a little scary to them as far as hybrid, given the nature of their meeting. But they wanted to attract a younger demographic. That was their ambition. That's who Amnesty are. But these meetings, these annual meetings, are hotly debated subjects are occurring, obviously. It's a passionate meeting. And there's no question that Amnesty don't want to lose that physical meeting element. But what they do want to allow is their younger generation in some instances, or just their members, wherever they may be in the country, to participate, just like everybody else is in that physical meeting. It's a Saturday and a Sunday in the middle of April. And it's challenging for people to get to Nottingham or wherever the location of their meeting is. So to allow for new people to be joining, that's certainly what they wanted. So we went through a journey. As I said, I mean, they started from a classic show of hands. They progressed to paper. And then they started to introduce the opportunity, as RSC were going through, allowing for votes ahead of the meeting, so proxy voting. Not just voting live at the meeting, trying to get a wider representation of the feeling of the members, not just those people in the room that can attend. And so we went through that journey with them. And then, of course, we provided with our electronic voting, just like we do for the sporting federations, in the room electronic voting. That helped. That's where we were adding to the proxy votes that were being received to provide these quick results for them, which were fully auditable. And then they started to progress things, just like RSC is trying to move away from paper. There's 100,000 members. That's a huge cost to them to send out these paper proxy forms, not just only for the AGM, but also for their elections. So to limit that, to reduce that, obviously saves a lot of cost for Amnesty, but also just encourages that online participation and gets people moving in that direction of technology. And we support that through not only their elections, which is a challenging process. It's not just a simple first past the post, it's a single transferable vote. So it's complex in that nature, but it's efficient and it's done all online. Now, a move to increasing a wider audience as well was to introduce webcasting at their meeting. So anybody could actually join their meeting. I think they stream that through YouTube at the moment. That's great, that's inclusive, but it's not, you don't know exactly which one of your members is joining and whether it's really having value. And we'll come back on to that. Now, proxy voting for elections, as I said, that's being introduced and that's something that we're working on, and I think the ambition is to be completely paperless as an association. Now, having data, having email addresses is of course what you need, and that's the progression, and it's exactly what RSC were going through and have gone through very successfully. But at the 2019 meeting, it was put to the members. It was the members' choice. Should we allow remote participation? Should we allow for your peers to be joining that meeting and feeling engaged just like everybody else? The opportunity to ask questions, to watch the debate, to be influenced potentially by the debate, but then ultimately being able to vote live in the moment. And that's something, as I said, was put to the members, and by a huge majority, it's absolutely in favour. So in 2020, we're working with them right now, as given our experience in this world of being able to provide that hybrid technology to their meetings. So in 2020, not only will you have people in the room, but you'll have people remotely joining, all having that same experience. And that webcast that I touched on before will be housed within that platform. So you know exactly what members are joining, where they are around the country, and obviously they'll be participating in the voting element too. Lastly, ITI. So actually, I know the CEO is here, Paul Wilson is actually at this conference today, and it's been good to meet up with him, because it was about 3 weeks ago that I think that we did this virtual meeting. And it's been an interesting journey with them as well. It's been only since 2018 that we've been engaged with ITI. But again, I think given the nature of who they are and their membership base, they are obviously the Institute of Translation and Interpreting. Their members are the translators that we see at conferences, and therefore they are located around the world. Yes, there's a large number here in the UK of their member base, but what they were limiting completely was the opportunity for all of their members to be part of this association truly at the annual general meeting where decisions were being made. And their meeting was at their head office on a Saturday, typically, and I think in 2017, they had 3 people turn up, which is a bit of a classic story, sadly, in some instances, for some associations, that is limiting. And I think not only is that sad to see as an association that your members obviously just cannot participate and cannot feel engaged, but it also can be challenging with quorums. And obviously if you have a piece of legislation that you've got to achieve around a quorum, then that can really be put in jeopardy when people can't turn up. So they made the bold decision, and they made the decision for the benefit of ITI to really move, as I say, to allow for virtual. So no physical meeting whatsoever. So albeit it was a small physical meeting, but there is now no cost for that physical meeting, and that is being removed. But they worked with us to create an opportunity to communicate to all of their members through a notice of meeting, to explain that this year in 2018 we will be providing a virtual meeting experience. This is where you go, this is the application that you can download, and these are the benefits of doing that, as I said before, through Q&A and voting. And it was hugely successful. As you can see on that 4th bullet point there, they saw a 300% increase. So they had about 35 people join from around the world and participate in their annual meeting, something they've never seen before. And they've never seen that level of engagement at that annual meeting. So a great success in partnership with them. And we then obviously continued that. That's certainly that repeated again in 2019. And we did a virtual one again. As you can see, the numbers have increased yet again. So of those 85 members, I think we actually received about 40 questions. Which can be scary to think about 40 questions you've got to deal with at an annual meeting. But what they did very, very effectively actually was to pull those together, to theme those questions, because they were quite common those questions that were coming through. They moderated through the dashboard those questions, and they had a really successful Q&A at that meeting. Something they look back on right now and think how successful that meeting was purely because of the information they received around the Q&A. Now, of course, they went through the formalities and conducted voting and received their votes accordingly. But I think that has really left them with a great feeling, and it's a great story about what is possible when going fully virtual and the opportunities that are there. So I think that draws to a conclusion, hopefully some interesting statistics, some interesting case studies about how successful the deployment of this technology is to these associations.
Thank you very much.